Welcome to the Swimming from Home talk show. I'm here with Matt Biondi. Um, Matt, I guess first off, how have you been handling things during this quarantine period?
I'm kind of a stay-at-home guy anyway. I think the popularity from the Olympics affected me in that I really wasn't ready for all the attention that I got. And so I would be out in public and doing the sports marketing and the public speaking. And then I would retreat to the 6 acres I bought in Castro Valley with my dog. And I would get enough groceries to last a couple weeks, and I would be happy just to stay at home. So I must admit, though, like as a teacher, I didn't like going out on Friday nights after the work week. Um, but I would end up going with friends because they were anxious to get out on the weekend. And I must say, I do miss, I do miss restaurants and socializing with people.
Yeah, yeah. I guess speaking of those Olympics, do you have from in 1988 you won 7 Olympic medals? Do you have a favorite one of those medals, or was there one that surprised you the most?
Um, Daniel Goldman wrote this book about power of positive thinking. And in there was the comment that they weren't surprised after third place finish in the 200 free to Duncan Armstrong, and then losing the gold medal by 100th of a second to Anthony Nesty in the 100 fly, that I would come back later that evening and anchor our 800 free relay in the fastest split I ever relay. So I think that final leg of the 4x200 free relay from Seoul was really kind of the turning point for me, where I felt like I had shown the world at least once what I was capable of doing. And then things could relax a little bit after that. I felt very strongly that I would go home as someone who had established his name in the sport and has accomplished great things. And so that final leg of the relay when we won and set the world record just sort of launched the rest of the Olympics for me.
Yeah. Now, at that time, the 50 hadn't been an event for very long. Is that correct?
It had been a world best most of my career. And then in 86, I believe, they changed it to a world record.
Okay.
And then the 88 games was the first time that the 50-meter freestyle was. So whenever they list the gold medals in the 50-meter freestyle, I'll always be at the top. No matter what.
Yeah. Is that, maybe before 86, is that something you were training for did you think that would get added, or were you hoping it would get added, or was that kind of a primary event for you before that time?
Up until the 96 games, I trained from the 50, 100 and up to the 200.
Okay.
In 100 butterfly. I also played water polo, which really helped my butterfly, oddly enough, gave me a lot of body strength that I don't think the freestyle necessarily did. But the sprints are such a big part of the college program. And so it just was a natural for me to, the 100 was kind of my bread and butter, and I could bump up to the 200 or bump down to the 50. But it was also like the 50 was also the most energetic event at a swim meet. The fact that Tom Jager was such an incredible competitor and so talented athletically, that when we would race against each other, and nobody went to the bathroom, nobody was in the concession stand, right? Everybody was, and you'd feel this electricity would come into the arena for the dash for cash, so to speak, right?
Yeah. So that segues perfectly. So the dash for cash, Mel actually just told me, ask him about that. And so I don't know what the Dash for Cash is. Can you inform me? So was that a TV show?
Well, um, really, the idea that you could market a swimming competition was something we observed from other sports in track and field, tennis.
Mhm.
We had such a great rivalry, and so many people enjoyed the fact that, on any given day, you never know who was going to win or who was going to take the record. So we received lots of invitations in Europe to be able to travel together and to be a part of a competition that was existing, or simply just a match race, the only competition on the ticket, and it did really well in Europe. And so we were talking with ABC Sports, Wide World of Sports, to see if they would be willing to cover it. Um, there was quite a bit of kickback and discussion with USA Swimming about whether this was taking the sport professional and whether we were going to, corrupt the sport by introducing the money to it. So it was really revolutionary. This has never happened in swimming before. And a big part of it was the fact that Tom and I had such an intense rivalry between the two of us. So what was interesting is USA Swimming allowed for the match race to go on as long as it was not associated with a USA Swimming event. So I think we were in Nashville, Tennessee, and literally at the end of the competition, 5,000 people, stands, fans, and swimmers had to exit the building. They put everybody out into the courtyard area outside. They closed the doors, then they opened the doors, and everybody came in as a quote unquote new event. And I think Tom beat me by 4/100ths in the final race, and we were both under the world record. So I can say that I've broken a world record in a competition and gotten second.
Which, yeah, that doesn't happen too often.
But it showed on United Airlines on
Uh-huh.
the sports segment for about a month. And I remember flying back from Denver to the Bay Area, and it popped up on the screen, and I sort of, get up out of my seat on the plane to see people were watching, if they were interested, if anyone would recognize that I was the one swimming. And that was fun. Yeah, I really credit Tom with being a leader in that regard. He was outspoken and really, I think, had some good ideas about how swimming could be marketed better back in the 80s.
Yeah. And now, I mean, I know you had a big part of that, of trying to market our sport in the late 80s. What are some of the options that you tried to explore during that time besides the Dash for Cash?
Well, back then we had trust funds. So there were issues about what expenses we could draw from the trust fund. So we had disclosing all of our income, our contracts, and obviously they don't have that anymore. But we felt as though there were some privacy issues with that, and it really wasn't any federation's business what I was able to negotiate with Arena or with Bausch and Lomb, or some of the other endorsement deals that I got worldwide. Mostly the concern, I think, was that to innovate is to disrupt, and we saw what was happening in other sports, and we wanted to draw attention to it. We felt as though, for the swimsuit contract should come to the swimmers and not to the clubs through the coaches and filter down to the swimmers. It should be something that we would be able to negotiate ourselves. I always thought it was strange that we couldn't get healthcare programs through our professional career, or that they didn't give us any media training. Can you imagine? We had no media training at all. So everything that I
Really?
learned in front of the camera was trial and error. And certainly I made a lot of mistakes. So having said that, I mean, this is a snapshot from the late 80s and early 90s. It gives you idea about how far USA Swimming and World Swimming has come in that 30-year period. It really the pendulum has swung towards the athletes in their right to make a living in the sport, to be treated like true professionals, the best in the world at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And the model of the amateur athlete who does it for the love of country and for the bottle of shampoo and swim bag is a little bit outdated when the Olympics are generating over $7 billion during the games.
Yeah, certainly. So I guess that kind of takes us to what your current project, what you're working on now, which is the Alliance, which is kind of associated with the ISL. Can you explain the Alliance to me?
Sure. The Alliance, it's a LLC corporation which has a plan for a board of 10 members, 6 of them being from the active swimming community. There's an attorney, there's 2 members from the management team, and then a sort of chairman or a leader of the meetings. And it's simply a partnership for swimmers to be able to speak with one voice, basically, around issues like had just come up with concerns about training, and the Olympics were going to happen, but swimmers couldn't get to their pools and clubs because of the quarantine. So it's a forum for the upper level swimmers, and what I mean by that is, to be eligible for the Alliance, you have to have a top time in the world for a long course in any event, and then you would be able to become a member. You would join the benefits that members have, either with that voice about issues and training schedules and individual rights of the athletes, as well as trying to increase the financial opportunities that swimmers have. So one of our main goals would be to negotiate some sort of guarantees from the Olympics in the form of prize money or participation, certainly for finals and semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
And then also we would like to work with other federations and other sports to be able to put together a sort of scaled down version of the Olympics with 7 premier sports that fans seem to enjoy most on television and live, and that we would pull together in a single city and have these pro Olympic games on an annual basis. So that's what we're working on, and I've been speaking to ISL athletes as well as to kind of basic hub training centers, like the ones down in San Diego. There's ones at Berkeley and Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
I was just out in Bloomington, Indiana, for
Okay.
Ray Luce's group in Indiana.
Yeah.
And so just speaking to them about new opportunities that are coming about in the sport, the changes in the sport, and curious if they would like to be a part of this organization to solidify the most salient points that swimmers would like to get across.
Yeah. So has this quarantine period and, especially this Olympic postponement, do you think that's actually helped this project and give it kind of more time to grow before you maybe enter those negotiations with the Olympics?
I think it's been a double-edged sword, like so many things.
Mm-hmm.
I was really looking forward to a big surge in enrollment after the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken at length to hundreds of athletes, and I would put a group of them in a category where they really like the idea of the Alliance. They think that swimmers should have that type of representation. But they're afraid to be the tall peg. I know that there's a saying, the tall peg gets the hammer. So if you become outspoken, if you are a leader in your field, but certainly if you go against the grain or the current trends that are happening with coaches and with administrators and with finances, that you run the risk of not being as marketable. Coaches wouldn't want their athletes to take the risks. Agents, say, well, why jump into it now? Stay course. enjoy the reputation that you've deserved. And then after the Olympics, go ahead and join this. So that part has not worked well for the Alliance. We wait another year with a number of really talented swimmers on the fence and willing to sign, but just not until their Olympics are over. So that part's been not so good. The interesting thing now is it really shows how vulnerable swimmers are with no guarantees that they for lost revenue because of the Olympics. I imagine some athletes, older athletes, wanting to get on with their lives and families and relationships would retire because the Olympics are now 15 months away. And so I think swimmers realize that the decisions that are made are primarily commercial and economic, and yet there's this human component in swimming and in the Olympics. I mean, these are real people and real lives, and it's not just about the money. And so I think that whole delay that the swimmers were feeling frustrated about not training was the Olympic Committee was reluctant to, and the IOC was reluctant to cancel the Olympics just because of the pocketbook. It was really a commercial decision that eventually they couldn't hold out any longer. So I think this last few months have really shown how vulnerable swimmers are, and we deserve to have some guaranteed money for their participation.
Yeah. So where do you see this going? Maybe just in the next 12 months, before this 2021 Olympics. How do you see this alliance growing, especially with season 2 of ISL?
I've had the most success in talking to swimmers face to face, obviously. So right now, my ability to communicate with top athletes is limited to the conferences over the computer or over the phone, and I just I don't think I'm as effective that way. Some people might be more than others, but I'll be anxious to get back on the road and see what actually visit the swimmers in their training facilities and be able to take them out to lunch, talk to them, answer their questions. So that I'll look forward to that. But until we can, open up the airports and the highways, I'll be just here on the computer trying to talk to swimmers and address their concerns and just continue to draw input from what they'd like to see their direction of their careers going.
Yeah. I guess as a final question, you mentioned an annual Pro Olympics, which to me personally sounds exhilarating. Why would that be one main focus of yours? What would that? What do you see as the benefit of that there for our sport?
I think what the Alliance, with the vision that I have for the Alliance, is to give athletes more choice. So they would sit down with their coaches, and over the next sometimes 4-year periods, certainly an annual calendar of what events they want to participate in. And if they feel like travel's too much or it's not the right time of the season for them, then they simply can choose not to go. But so the Alliance, with this Games to Magic is what it's called, but the idea is a Pro Olympic Games. And then, you have the ISL and you have your international meets. And so the more opportunities that we can provide out there, the better we can showcase our sport. And, there's also a whole tier of very talented swimmers who, make an Olympic final but don't win a medal. And it would open up opportunities for those really exceptional swimmers and other athletes who may be overshadowed when there's only one big competition every 4 years. So we can mix the sports, put in more major competitions, and give more people opportunity to earn a living and to get exposure for their commercial value as well.
Yeah. I think that sounds awesome. So do you have any closing thoughts, Matt?
I feel very fortunate to have this opportunity. I take it with great sense of pride that, you know, it, in a sense, it's been able to bring my career kind of full circle. I'll be honest, in the years from 89 to 92 were very difficult for me to find training. I had to hire my own coach. The head men's Olympic coach for 96. I asked him if I could come train him at Texas, and he said no, I couldn't come because his loyalty was to his Texas team and not to the United States, even though he was the head coach. So those last few years were really difficult for me, and that's how I ended up in the classroom teaching math and being a swim coach for 17 years. I just really needed to get away from swimming. So this opportunity to come back with all the changes that are happening, a lot of the things that Tom and I spoke about 30 years ago have come true, even though back then it was you know, a heavy lift. And now it's a real part of everyday life. And so this is an opportunity for me to get back to something I was really passionate about. And in a new environment where professionalism for our Olympic athletes is widely accepted.
That's, yeah, I mean,
So it's a real
congrats.
treat. It's a real
Yeah,
treat for me.
that's very cool. I'm very, you know, I only know the world of swimming that I've been brought up in, and certainly I think it has room to grow. But you know, hearing the world that you were coming from, it is very cool to see the strides we've made. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Matt.
Sure. Yeah. And hopefully more strides to come in the future. Yeah.
Certainly.